Hey everybody, happy Friday, Tech Time with Tammy. So today's tech video is going to be kind of like we're going to save your ass in a pinch situation. It may not be a video that the majority of other paint companies in the industry are going to be the fondest of, and it's not to, stir any controversy or stir any trouble. This is just literally information that I feel is beneficial to the end user, to the painter, where I see questions asked in these groups every single day. Somebody gets into a pinch. They don't know what to do. They're trying to save their ass to get the job done, to get the job delivered. They know that maybe they shouldn't do it, but you got to do it, right? Every single person who's painting, who is watching this video, has been in a situation or a scenario where they have to pull a trick out of the hat and they got to get the job done. And you use things off the bat that you probably think you shouldn't have done, but you did it. And then you realize years down the road, well, I did it then and it worked. And then I did it another time and it worked. Okay, well, let's talk about it. Hardeners. Hardeners that go in your clears, hardeners that go in your primers, hardeners that go in your base coat, hardeners that go in your acrylic enamel when you used to use it back in the day, or your synthetic enamel hardeners when you used to use it back in the day. All of those hardeners, believe it or not, are the same. Now, there are differences in some of the hardeners, meaning you can have trimers, you can have HDM hardeners, you can have different, versions of isocyanates. And that is true. There's different versions of being able to have variations. There's different brands of hardeners. There's different chemical manufacturers that make the raw material resin for the hardener, right? But they're all doing it to be the same. They're all copying the same thing. So for instance, most people might not know this, but in a raw state, when a paint manufacturer buys the hardener to be able to make their products with, it's just one hardener, meaning it's a drum of hardener that's 100% solids. It has no solvent in it. It's 100% solids. You take that and then you start using it in combination with your solvents to create your hardeners to temperature, meaning your fast, your medium, your slows. You start making your hardeners for your primers, which are lower solids almost in every single case in comparison to clear coat hardeners. Then you start making your clear coat hardeners, and depending on the solids content of said clear, that's going to dictate the solids content of said hardener, meaning 2-to-1 hardeners are different solids than 4-to-1 hardeners. Low solids hardeners are different solids than medium and high solids hardeners out of 4-to-1. Like a PPG 61 catalyst is an extremely high solids hardener in comparison to the hardeners that they'll have you use when you can substitute them out. So that 4-to-1 allows it to be used at with that high solids to fully catalyze it and make it where it needs to go. But you could also take it and mix it 2-to-1 if you were using a different hardener, and you could do it and it would work and it would cure. So what I want this video to be is this: if you're in a pinch, if you're painting and your paint store is closed, it's at midnight, you can't go anywhere to get anything. You live in a small town. There is no option for you right now. You're not going to get anything until maybe Monday. Maybe you live 2 hours from that store. All kinds of reasons, right? All kinds of reasons you might need to find a substitution to just get you through. If, let's just say, you're mixing primer, you run out of your primer hardener, your tech sheet says you use this specific hardener. If you were to use your clear coat hardener at the 4-to-1 or whatever mix ratio that the primer calls for, it will work. It will cure, it will fully cross-link, it'll catalyze, and it will get you through 100%. If you're mixing your clear and you run out of hardener and you know you need to get it done, could you go reach for another hardener of similar mix ratio and mix it in there and get the job done and it work the way it needs to just to get the job out of the door and get you through? Yes, it will work. What a lot of people don't realize is that most of the hardeners on the market, because most of the clears are formulated around the same similar solids content, almost all of the hardeners kind of follow suit. Meaning this one clear takes it a 4-to-1 with this hardener, it takes it a 4-to-1 with this hardener, it takes it a 4-to-1 with this hardener. You think they're 3 different hardeners. They're really not. They're 3 different labels on those hardeners, but they're all within similar solids, if not the exact same solids, with a different label on it, and it will work to catalyze the other clear at the same mix ratio. I have been able, for many, many years, to take a clear, mix it a 2-to-1, knowing what the solids content is, swap it over, mix it at a 4-to-1 with a different hardener and a different strength, and it gets the job done, knowing what you're working with. Should you do it completely blindly? No, you should have an idea of what the solids is that you're using, and then you should try to find the hardener based on a similar solids of what you're going to be substituting. So if you're using, a Revolt 66 clear and you need to substitute it, the hardener is a completely different hardener that goes with the 41 euro clear that we sell. But if you needed to substitute the hardeners out, they're both 2-to-1 mix ratios. They're both similar in solids content. They're both similar in idea. You could switch those hardeners out and it would catalyze and get you through, meaning you could do that. If you were using like a sealer, you could use a different sealer hardener and it would get you through. It doesn't matter if it's a different brand, it would get you through. If you're mixing an acrylic enamel at an 8-to-1 mix ratio, right? Everybody thinks that is like an acrylic enamel hardener. They think that it is an enamel, synthetic enamel hardener. It's not. They're urethane grade hardeners. They always have been. And most people don't realize that. They think it's something different. So you would just take your urethane grade hardener that you have and you would mix it at an 8-to-1, and then that would catalyze your acrylic enamel if you're still doing that. Same idea when it comes to base coats. You'll see where you can take a base coat and you can mix it 16-to-1 with a hardener to activate your base coat. And it doesn't matter what hardener you use. Have you ever noticed that? It doesn't matter what hardener you put in your base coat. Yes, the companies will say use this one hardener. Realize that PPG's DX57 hardener is another hardener relabeled in a different label in a different can, sold another way. It's not specifically created just to mix into the Deltron system at a 16-to-1. It just isn't. It's just at a solids that works well in the base at a 16-to-1, and they knew that making a standalone hardener would work for everybody versus just being like, hey, just grab whatever hardener you want. That said, if you want to catalyze your base coat, and I'm not telling you that you have to, but if you want to catalyze your base coat, if you do now, and you run out of a hardener, you can just use your clear coat hardener at the 16-to-1 and it will work perfectly fine. If you're mixing your primer and you run out, you can mix your clear in there. Like I said, you can take your clear coat hardener, you can mix it in there. Now, can you take a primer hardener and mix it into your clear? That is one question I am asked a lot. And that's really where that part gets a little bit different. Because primer hardeners are lower solids, because it takes a lower solids hardener to fully catalyze a primer, that won't be enough solids content to fully catalyze a high solids or standard solids clear, meaning anywhere between a medium solids to high solids clear. Using around 30 or so % solids primer hardener is not going to be enough to give you the full catalyzation to fully cross-link that clear in most cases. So you would have to, change the mix ratio, but then you have to realize primer hardeners, because they're lower solids, they use a lot more solvent, so that's going to thin the viscosity of your clear even more. If you were to do something like that, you wouldn't add as much, reducer to the mix if you do that, knowing that it's going to thin it. So have I had guys take primer hardener and mix it 2-to-1 and stick it in their 4-to-1 clear? Yeah, I've had people do that, and I've had it work, and I've had people have no issues because they bumped up the solids. You can over-catalyze anything to a certain degree. In fact, it doesn't hurt anything by over-catalyzing by at least 10%. If you do that, you don't hurt anything. Now, if you severely over-catalyze something, then you actually slow it down. So you ever see people that will be like, oh, if you just stick some extra hardener in there, you actually just force it to cure faster. No, you don't. You actually force it to cure slower. So when you add more hardener than what's recommended to get it to full curing, to get it to the full where it needs to be for catalyzation, if you keep putting more in there thinking you're doing some kind of service of speeding that process up, you're doing the exact opposite. You're slowing that process down. So again, if you're in a pinch and you need to take someone else's primer hardener and catalyze your primer, you can do it. Follow your mix ratio. If you need to catalyze another clear coat at a 4-to-1 and you have a clear hardener that you mix 4-to-1 in that other clear and you need to get through, you can do it. If you need to do the same thing with a 2-to-1's clear, you can do it. I would be a little bit leery whenever you're trying to do it with a 66 from us, only because it is so high solids. You would need to find something similar to get you to catalyze it at that ratio. That said, I've had other guys substitute the hardener and not have an issue. Again, this is not popular opinion. Paint companies don't want this kind of thing told, but the truth is, I see it every single day. I see it asked every single day. And I'll come in there and I'll tell them how to get through, even though it's not what the TDS says, even though it goes against everything else. Yes, you are technically breaking your warranty, so realize that. But if you need to get through and you need to get the job done, this is information that will help you do that. Hopefully this was helpful. Have a great weekend. Take care. I'll be back with more Tech Time with Tammy on Monday. Thanks.